morning, everybody. This is our panel, our expert panel on intercultural communication. And today we'll be summing up a few of the main points of what we learned in Communication 351 this semester. We had a lot of guest speakers, and we had a lot of movies that we watched and analyzed, so we're going to start talking about that. And we're going to begin with Lisa Sanchez. So,
perfect. Okay, I'm Lindsay Schoenthaler. I'm from San Francisco, and I go to Boise State.
And I'm Rileigh Crawford. I'm from Northern Idaho, and I'm a senior this year.
My name is Anna Figueroa, and I'm from the Seattle area, and it's my junior year.
My name is Fallon, and I'm from the Bay Area, and this is my junior year.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go.
So, Rileigh, do you want to kick off your thoughts?
Talking about Lisa Sanchez?
Yeah.
So I was really inspired and really happy that she came in to speak, because I think it's so cool what she's done for Boise itself and her experiences that she had moving to a small town. That was like really touching for me to imagine how she felt trying to go somewhere that's even like less accepting and how long ago it was. But I actually ended up contacting Lisa for a different project, and I had her help me make like a video about the importance of diversity at Boise State. So I like got a lot out of her coming and speaking in class.
Nice.
You guys remember anything of like what she said?
I think one of my favorite things, she's the one who brought in her, the tool she used for cooking with her family.
Yeah.
And how that was like a symbolic thing, even though like it was just to make tortillas. She used it in like all aspects of her life. The just the like ideas and culture behind it and the values that go with it with her family. I just think that's a really cool way to know your values and live through them, is to like have something that actually represents them for you, which I thought was really interesting and really cool that she would bring that in to show us just a little bit of her life, because it really helped connect all the dots in the story, I feel like, for me.
I definitely feel like she took that like hard work mentality and like pulling herself up because of what she's done.
I agree.
She was so cool because she had a lot of things that were against her, and I felt like she just continued to prevail. And it just seemed like her family, being so family oriented, and just like how much love she had and passion she had for what she was going towards, like nothing could stop her. And that's the same mindset she's had now as it is when she was a kid. So that really inspired me.
I really liked how she was so proud of herself being a Latina, because I'm one too. A lot of people don't know this, but I am half Mexican, and so I really appreciate how confident she was in talking about her family and how their diversity set them apart, but it strengthened her, because that's the mindset I'd like to have about my Hispanic heritage and my father coming from another country. So taking on that perspective just adds so much more to the group.
Yeah, it really does. Gives you a whole new perspective.
It was also so cool how she lived so simply. Like, I love that I think she was talking about how when she was at the restaurant and she had to take a bath upstairs. I think that was a really cool perspective to have, because a lot of people could look at that and be like, oh, we didn't have anything and we had to take a bath in the same place we were trying to run a business in, but she took it as getting closer with their family and such a blessing.
Yeah, she was able to take that experience and learn from it, take it as a learning experience, which I think is very beneficial in life, to be able to do that.
You don't see like a lot of people with that perspective representing in politics a lot, and so I just feel really powerful to me that she like had humble beginnings, and she wasn't there because of like her family or money or like so that was really inspiring to me, and I think that she's doing a great job in what she does for city council.
Yeah.
I would have to hear from her.
How was it? How has she been when you reached out to her? Was she still as friendly?
She was super supportive. So we actually did, if you guys heard about the legislators at Boise State who like opposed all the diversity programs, and they wrote that letter. Yeah, so I did a social movements project, and we responded to the letter, and we did a petition around Boise State, and Lisa helped with our PSA for it, and talked about some more of her experiences, like coming to school and how she didn't think that people would be racist at college, and how she had a different experience from that and ended up. So it was really beneficial to have her come speak, and I think impactful for like what it means diversity on campus today.
Yeah. She was the one who started the university foundations on campus, right? Which is so, like, I hate to say it, but I didn't necessarily love those classes when I was in them, but like knowing what her purpose was for them and her idea, like just to diversify and like learn about diversity and the ethics around it. I think it's really good. I think we should do it. But I feel like with the reflections I've heard from other people about UF, it's like maybe it's not being approached in the right way, or the teachers aren't getting the message across.
I think so. I think that's exactly what it is it's not being approached in the right way, because so many people are like, this doesn't relate to my major, and it's like a waste. But that connects back to like this importance of like inclusion and diversity and getting out of school and being able to like learn something like that.
Because in the end, it applies to all of our lives, whether or not our majors, but that's what it applies to. So
it's the workforce. It's the world.
Exactly. Maybe she should come back and teach one of her classes. That'd be pretty cool.
That would be pretty cool. I think if before you had to take like a UF 200 class or UF 100 class, if you knew the background on why and like how it started, I think a lot more people would be stoked about the class.
I agree.
But I just think because you're going into the class and you're not, like, at least for me, I'm in a UF 200 right now, and I wasn't really sure what the topic was going to be before I was in it. And then I was like, oh, I don't really care about this topic. But it's cool now that I'm in it, because now I'm like, oh, I'm learning about a topic I didn't think I really cared about, but I do. Which is super awesome.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Should we move on to Jeremy from the ACLU?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, to start off, does anyone remember what the ACLU stood for? I've been wanting to know, but I can always look it up.
The ACLU,
because it's a nonprofit.
The American Civil Liberties Union.
Yes, and they're a nonprofit and
nonpartisan too, which is cool.
Yeah, Jeremy was a really great guest speaker.
So, for their 501(c) filings, they're supposed to be bipartisan. But like a lot of the legislative work that they do on their 501(c)(4) side is like partisan. Kind of like, if you ever looked into it, because the ACLU is like known for being like left skewed, for sure. But you can do like legislative stuff if you file that. But like anything that they do that's just like news comm awareness, like, and is not any lobbying, has to be done separately.
That's really interesting. That's really interesting, because the ACLU prides himself in being nonpartisan. But
that's not how people know them as too.
But when you start to look into any organization, you notice, or as being a good citizen, you kind of become aware of things that you could do differently, or that you need to be an advocate for change, even within like well-established organizations like the ACLU.
I thought it was interesting that he, even like with the time that he had with us, he also talked about his time abroad and how that helped his career and perspective on life. I thought that was really cool, and it was just cool hearing about he was in South Korea, and like hearing about the food and the people. I thought it was really cool, because he wasn't expecting to go there, and then he found that job and just made it happen, which is really, I think that's such a cool way to live. Finding places to put yourself and learn from anything that comes your way.
Did that inspire anybody for a future career? Like after college, did you think about doing a program like that?
I've never thought about doing that, but it sounds super fun to go teach English somewhere.
I thought it was really unfortunate that he's African American, and he also mentioned that like a week before coming and visiting us, he had dreads. And he had like the dreaded hairstyle when he went to South Korea, and he talked about how people kind of stared at him a lot, and they kind of treated him as if he was a spectacle, because he looked so different. So I thought that would be, with myself being in that position, that'd be hard to overcome. But I thought it was so inspiring how he just kept chugging along and kept teaching and doing what he was there for. But that's definitely something I thought of if I were to go teach abroad like he did.
Yeah, you'd want to feel comfortable.
Oh yeah.
How long did he say he had his dreads?
I think 13 years.
Yeah,
that's a long time.
Yeah. I like looked him up on like Facebook, because he told us to, like Safari, and like just like a Google search after, and like all of his pictures are with dreads.
Wow.
Like every single picture is all with dreads. Yeah, because only a week before.
Yeah. Wasn't it the day before? He just.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Which is just crazy timing.
It was
like,
yeah, just right before he said something.
That's
along those
awesome.
lines.
Yeah.
That is so awesome. And I thought it was so funny how he met his wife
Yeah.
overseas, and then she's literally from like Floridian, which is crazy.
Just happened to be from somewhere so close to where he was.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But then he moved here for her, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
That's how we ended up here.
Yeah. Which is cool.
Yeah, I thought he was like a perfect. I forget his exact job title for the ACLU, but I thought he was like a perfect like rep for them because he was very like, you could tell he was a very open-minded person and a resilient person. Even the fact that he went to Korea and he had so much resilience. Like even I remember he was talking about with the workbook they used how the workbook was just racist, and he was like, okay, well I'm not going to do this and this and this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just it's a very honorable thing how risky it was for him to go there and being like, okay, I don't believe in teaching these things and like I'm not gonna do it. But he like, you can tell he really stands up for what he believes in.
Yeah.
I also thought it was cool how I forget exactly where him and his wife were when they were abroad, but when they were abroad and they were like, okay, we have to come back and like make a difference in America.
Yeah,
they just
after the
did
election.
not want to at all, and they just knew that they had to. I thought that was like extremely selfless because they were like, well, since it's gonna get like depending on your views or not, like they thought it was gonna get worse in America, so they were like, okay, I'm gonna go back there. But that's just like a crazy mindset to have, like putting yourself in darkness like that. You're like, okay, like I'm just gonna go into that when they could have easily been away.
Yeah.
And you can tell they are like very like abroad people, like they don't want to be here, like they want to be around the world in different cultures. So I thought that was super selfless of them.
I agree.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. Any last minute thoughts on Jeremy?
Yeah, on a local level, he really intrigued me and made me think about actually becoming involved in the ACLU on a local level, because Idaho is maybe the best place to get involved. Is what seemed to be the point he was getting across, because the connection to the people in power here is a lot closer within reach compared to other states with a bigger population. So it definitely seemed like an accessible organization or like group of people to reach out to.
Goal to have.
Yeah.
To reach out.
He's the communications director, and so that was like, that'd be like a job I would look at. He's running all their social media and like putting all this stuff into, his work is really cool. I think it was so awesome to get to hear so much about his job and learn about that nonprofit in Idaho.
Definitely. Very cool. Well, up next we have In Football We Trust, which is a movie that we watched about some high school football players who were Polynesian, and they went to a school in Utah. I guess it was a couple different schools though that we got OC from, but I really enjoy the Polynesian culture. I think it's really fun, and it's always fun and exciting. So I always love watching any type of documentary or movies on it, because I just love the culture. And they had one of my favorite, because I went to school with a lot of Polynesian students in high school, and something that I connected to the movie was their drink kava, which is like a Polynesian root, and it kind of calms you down, and it's more of a social drink that you drink with other people. And I love that they showed that in the film, and like just a group of people, group of guys hanging out, having some kava, and I love that.
It was funny. That was a good part.
Yeah, I really love that, the culture that we got to see in the movie. I thought that was really interesting.
I thought it was kind of sad seeing the pressure a lot of them were under, like from their families.
So much pressure, because they needed the money to go.
And I just they put so much stock in like football and their success in football, and so I thought that was just like a part I took away from it, because I feel like you see that happening like at lower levels sometimes with people, but like because it was such a huge thing economically, it was really put the focus on it. So,
and especially with the Polynesian culture, I wrote down a quote from the movie, and it says, "We come from a line of warriors, which in their culture, but like that's a lot of pressure as well when you go into any sport and like feeling like you have to be resilient and like really stand up and not fight, but like fight for victory basically. And it's hard, and especially if you're doing it every night of the week and every weekend, and then trying to go to college for that, because it gets even harder in college. So definitely a lot of pressure.
And they're so tied to their family too, like the culture is so much more like family oriented. And
that's probably why again, there was so much pressure on them to get the scholarships, because it was for the family and everyone will benefit from it. So it's definitely hard, but really cool how you can help your family through that too.
It's true, and I just thought it was interesting how like all of them, their identities were so like fixated on football that it was just kind of crazy, because at least it seemed like in the movie like they were lacking in other areas, like in like social awareness and like, I mean like going to jail and like all that stuff, like just because their identity, they were so wrapped up in that I felt like in other areas they weren't as strong in, which is fine, but it's just crazy like how when you make something like the movie title is literally like in football we trust, like they don't really, like that's where they put all their trust, which is, I mean I'm not an athlete, but I always think I can understand how you can get so wrapped up in that, especially like going collegiate level and like getting money for it, and like literally like you can make like your lifeline off of that.
If you continue, you could do it for a living.
Yeah, you could do it for a living and make like so much money. But I just wonder like how rare that actually is. And then, you know, like they were talking about like what they wanted to do if they didn't do football, and I thought that was interesting too, because it's like such a back-ended idea. Like it's not really like even thinking about it, because it's probably a really scary idea. Like, oh, what am I gonna do without football?
Yeah. Especially because they were in high school, right? So especially at that age too, when everybody's trying to figure out their lives.
There's so much stress. And it also like being a student athlete like is so crazy, because you literally just need like your physical body to be healthy all the time, and that's something you can never guarantee on, especially in a sport where you can get hurt. So I thought that was also very interesting.
I thought it was interesting to understand another perspective of what draws people to Utah. I mean, Utah is Idaho's neighbor, like relative to our location, and there seems to be a few reasons why people are drawn to go in there. The most predominant ideology is probably religion, the LDS Church. So hearing that people or other people outside of the religion are being drawn there, I found that really interesting. And so I would like to know how people outside of the predominant culture in Utah are interacting with more of these people coming there for football, like the Polynesian people in the movie. But it was really it was valuable to have a little deeper understanding of or expanded understanding of why people are drawn to going to Utah.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Did they get recruited? Did the Mormon church bring them in? Is that how they immigrated to Utah? Is the church involved with their immigration?
I don't think so. I think they lived there,
It's just random.
and then they also were all religious. Because I remember him going to church with his family, or his one of them went to church every week with his family.
Yeah.
I don't know if they brought them to Utah. That's a good thought.
I know, and a lot of them went on missions after their.
Yeah.
One of them went on a mission afterwards, and then went to Weber State University and be his girlfriend afterwards.
Yeah.
That's something that that's something that wasn't addressed when we were learning about the film. Is what was going on outside of the film.
Yeah. But I felt like that could be connected to like the fact that we were watching this and we were watching their formative years, and it was all about football and their success and like what was feeding like, you know, their soul at the time.
Their
like,
identities. You know, it was like.
Yeah, I was like, you're gonna succeed at football, or you're going to like be nothing, you know. And so it's kind of like that background to it. But yeah, we didn't talk about that, and I found that because they were gonna screen this movie at Weber State, and the victim was like, I would like you to not do this until the case is done. Yeah.
Wow.
But he was found guilty.
That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
That is absolutely huge.
Yeah, that's interesting thinking about like the decisions that he made later on based off of what we saw in the movie
because he was the one who was with the girlfriend that whole time and was like super in love with her.
And she was so supportive. And they were cute and she was so supportive.
But he had a really tough time. He had a really tough time with like, because didn't he was the one who dropped out after a year.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And then I know he went on a mission. And then went to Weber. Yeah. And then that's when everything went.
And I think he ended up getting suspended for Weber too, and so like kind of got a rough.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think it's just crazy. Like I can't even imagine the pressure of like your whole life wanting something so badly, getting that thing and realizing like, oh, you know, like,
or like it's not what I thought.
Yeah, it's not like filling me how I thought it would like leave me content. And
not having your family be like, oh, that's okay. You can do something else instead of that being like, no. You know?
That is huge. Yeah.
That is so crazy. That's like literally like going to medical school, like, or like knowing your whole life you're gonna be a doctor and then you become a doctor. Like, I don't want to be a doctor. Like,
it's like, what do you do now? Because you've been focusing on that for the past like 8 years.
That's
really
crazy.
Hardcore.
Yeah, that's crazy. I can't even imagine like how your identity would be so messed up after that.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
I wonder how they're all doing.
Yeah.
Because that movie was not very old.
Yeah.
So they'd be like kind of close to our age, I think.
Probably.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. I wonder if they're even playing football still, or
if any of them are.
Yeah.
Because I thought like more than one of them left to go on a mission.
I think at least 2 of them, but I think
one went right off the bat, and then one went after an unsuccessful year.
Okay.
That's crazy.
Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
Well, we also watched Arranged.
Yes.
We all know a lot about this one.
This was the most recent movie.
Which will be including our guest speaker, Irene, who will be jumping in on our topic about the film.
Yes,
welcome, Irene.
Welcome.
Everybody.
Good morning.
So, yeah, keep going.
What was everyone's initial reaction to the Arranged movie?
Yeah, I know we have some mixed ideas in our group, but I enjoyed the movie because I enjoyed learning about a different culture. I wouldn't necessarily say that I mean, you can love and hate other cultures as much, like what they do, but parts of it, I was not sad for the women, but like I just felt bad because I wanted them to make their own decisions with who they wanted to marry and like all that kind of thing, but I know that it's their process, and it was just really cool learning about it, and then seeing 2 women from 2 different cultures like kind of lean on each other to get through the same experience in a different culture. So I thought I liked the movie in that sense that you could see 2 different cultures like immediately interacting with the same thing happening in their life.
I thought it was really sweet. Yeah, I thought their friendship was really sweet. Like there was something like super special about that.
Yeah.
The way that they were finding commonalities, but then still like wanting to stay true to their religion. I felt like it was like kind of like an overgeneralization of like women and possibly their religion, and like, but also it was just like exploring an outdated movie, and so like I think the message that it was trying to perceive, which was like all feel good and like friendship and not judging, I think it did that. Yeah, for sure. I definitely think it could be updated.
That's a good point.
I also still think that they should have ended up as love interests in the end and gotten married to each other. That's I'm sticking with that.
They should have ended up representing the LGBTQ community.
Yes.
Plot twist.
Okay. That would have been cool. That would have been such a plot twist.
That would have been beautiful.
Such a plot twist. I thought it was cool because before watching the movie, I had a really bad representation in my mind of arranged marriage. Like, I was just like, why would you ever be in arranged marriage? Like, maybe it's because, like, I think rom-coms are cute and stuff, but I just was like, I don't understand why you do that. It just seems like a lot of choosing, not a lot of like fun. And I thought the movie put arranged marriages, like, it just gave it a different light in my head, and like I think it was so cool because they didn't necessarily like, I think in my mind I thought like your parents were like, this is a man for you, and you're like, okay, and then you really don't have a choice. But in the movie they had almost like casual like interactions with these guys, and like almost got to choose. And like not necessarily how we get to choose in the way that there's like we can choose anyone, but they got to choose like out of like a few like candidates, which I thought was better than that. And even like Rahel, she actually ended up marrying someone she loved, so that was really cool. We both did, but I thought that was really cool.
Yeah,
at the end.
very cool. What did you think of the movie?
I really enjoyed it. When I thought I actually turned the views as far as looking at their their viewpoint of it being the arranged marriage. Because when you think about it, they're all growing up, same religion, same culture, values, their beliefs and everything. And so when they're getting, when they're being arranged, even though it's arranged, they're still getting some input. As we saw in the movie. But they already know the other person's families, extended families. They already know like their values that they're coming up with, because it's all shared in that sense. So there's never like, okay, well, how many kids are we gonna have? That's already in that arranged marriage. So I agree as far as like not really having to be able to choose. I mean, there was a little bit of leeway in there, but when you look at it, it's just like, oh, okay, they have those similarities and all that, values and cultures are already kind of like built in. Which I thought was interesting when you turned it around and looked at it that way too.
Because they were able to get to know someone very quickly, because it was kind of like, I guess, speed dating almost, but they were able to like get the important facts to see if they would end up being a good couple together, which is, I think that's a really good way to look at it too, from their perspective.
From the I don't want to say opposing perspective, but from another perspective, I think this movie was a great example of possibly structural violence. And I don't mean to use the word violence as heavily as like bloodshed and whatnot, but the structures of their culture prevent the women from having the first opinion or the first say in a lot of their situations. And not to say that their culture or those two cultures are the only ones guilty of this, but I think viewing the movie as an outsider, it opened up. It opened my perspective to now be critical of my own institutions and see how structural violence may be at play within my own life.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I think that it creates a whole different dynamic when it comes to like power and control, and your spouse being able to have power and control in your situation. So I'd like to know, like, how does that work really? Like, how much? If you're arranged, like, how much say do you have, like, to get out of your marriage? Can you go to your parents? How safe does that like make the woman feel to like go tell them that she's not seeing? And I don't think that the women were listened to or like seen as complex human beings so much, which like that's all like digging down deep, which is what I do in these types of movies. But I agree, like I totally understand what you're saying. I was thinking like the same thing.
I think
coming from like a domestic violence standpoint.
I think it may have been the overgeneralization of the two cultures and the process of the arranged marriage may have been a production decision as far as cinematics. Although a specific example of the structural violence I'm talking about is specifically when Nasira had a potential suitor in her home that she didn't know, who ended up being look just based off of appearances maybe 10 years or 15 plus years ahead of her, and she immediately was just unattracted to this man because she didn't know him. He came from another country, but the fact that her parents, or specifically her father, was even entertaining the idea of having him as a potential suitor was kind of disturbing to me. And she quickly went away to the bathroom in the scene, and her mother met her, and her mother specifically said after Nasir expressed her concern, she said, "We will talk to him," her father. And that was kind of hard for me to hear, because it devalued her opinions. It made her opinions seem as if they needed to be confirmed or acknowledged by her father before they were credible.
Yeah, that was definitely my I got.
Yeah, and I think also in this movie, it also like went back to what we were learning as far as like the collectivistic and the individualistic cultures.
Absolutely.
You know, because we growing up, you know, very individualistic culture. You know, making our own choices, that sort of thing. As far as you know, collectivistic. Doing what's good for the group, for you know what's group, you know, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's definitely how Nasir's family was run for sure. I really liked how, although there was that one situation where it wasn't someone she liked, I feel like they were able to talk about it in a healthy way and then like continue to look for someone that she found attractive, which I thought was really cool.
That is really cool. I also thought it was interesting, like, again, kind of what you guys were saying. I wonder how, obviously, I don't know anyone with an arranged marriage that I know of, but I think it'd be interesting because, like, I just believe that how you start, like, something is, like, how it probably, like, is going to keep going. So, like, for example, like, if you start a marriage, like, with, you're not really having a say, like, I just wonder, like, not even in domestic violence cases, like, yes in that, but, like, in every other case, like, where you want your kids to go to school, like, just everything like that, like, I just wonder if the women feel like they don't really have that much of a say, and they just kind of, like, are forced to submit. And obviously, like, when you're forced to submit, nothing goes that well, you know, it's like, submitting is good if you feel honored and respected, because you're like, okay, I will, but, you know, like, I want to, but in that case, I just wonder how it goes, specifically, like, with all the little decisions after they get married.
That's a good point, because you wonder, because since the dad is that checkpoint for all of them, the next fatherly figure is probably going to be the next one that's going to have all the power, which again could just be the way their culture is. But yeah, I wonder how that affects like literally every aspect of their life.
And that's just people like on like an individual level, you know, different.
Yeah, I think analyzing the audience of the movie, which was our class, I think it would have been valuable if we had someone from either of those cultures to contribute
to just tell us to fact check it. Like,
to open the dialogue and maybe help us see things that we hadn't seen before, because none of us belonged to either of those cultures.
Yeah, a lot of us aren't.
So I also feel like, because like we can all like have our own opinions and say whatever, but also it's like they're like a foundation unless there's somebody from those, you know, speaking and representing and saying. So.
In an ideal setting, we would.
Anna, do you want to talk about A Farewell to Arms?
Yeah, so we also watched A Farewell to Arms a little earlier on in the semester, and this was a tragic love story, essentially.
Tragic love story.
A tragic love story about a wartime medic and a nurse, and they happen to be from different countries while serving abroad in World War I.
He was just a volunteer,
in World War I. Catherine was from England. Frederick was actually from the U.S., but serving in the Italian army. And they had I believe, a relationship way ahead of their time. I feel like the story could have been something common to what we see today as far as progressive relationships, although taking their time or like the historical time setting into consideration, their relationship was really looked down upon. Specifically, they had a baby at wedlock.
Yeah, that was, and the movie was so old. You mentioned that. I didn't even think about it either when I watched it, because I was just like, oh, whatever, like she had a baby. And then you said that, and I was like, yeah, that was weird at the time, huh? Wasn't it? That she was out running around.
I admired her because she was so okay with it. She didn't care what anyone thought. She was ready to have the baby. She said, okay, Frederick, we're gonna make this work. And he went away to war to serve, all the while she was still working and pregnant, which is so relatable to life
today,
now.
life now.
That like
Or to mom.
it blows my mind that they did that.
Yeah, and she wasn't seen, like, I don't think there was too much in the movie at all where he was seen as like a hero figure to her, you know, like she was pretty strong, old lady.
I think it was also interesting from the perspective of her friends who really care about her, because they seem to be the sounding block for the mindset of the time period. They were really upset at Frederick for putting her in that position and leaving her while she was pregnant, all the while working. And so they tended to be the opposing or the
Kind of like the
predominant norm of the time. But
I can kind of understand where they were coming from though, because they probably thought he wasn't going to come back.
It was wartime.
It was wartime. Yeah,
that's a big deal. Absolutely.
They were like, dang, it's a big thing.
Yeah.
Because that is really scary. Like,
Yeah, it was really scary.
I think this movie was also really big in understanding gender roles, and that is a big part of intercultural communication, because how cultures perceive gender roles vary from location to location, and so I think that really added complexity to their relationship.
yeah. Well, the different concepts like in intercultural communication, like that article we read about the domestic violence increasing after natural disasters, and the like idea of like the perceptual concept and how we're looking at things, and how things like gender and race like affect your everyday interactions. I think it's so important. One of the biggest takeaways from this class, I think, is being able to recognize that and like read through situations better, knowing like, I don't know, just knowing like that background, people like believe things so differently than you do, and so does anybody have anything else to add about what we learned this semester?
I think we nailed it.
Yeah.
Did we nail her down?
Yeah, it was awesome.
All the highlights?
I think having guest speakers was awesome.
Yeah.
I really appreciated that opportunity in this classroom, because how do you teach intercultural communications all from one mind, one perspective? So I thought it was really smart.
And I thought he brought in some really cool people that could really show intercultural culture in their life.
Yeah. I think that the movie Do the Right Thing was like a cultural experience, like in itself, just watching that. Because I'd never seen that before, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, the movies were all great too.
Yeah. That was one of my favorites.
Yeah, I really liked that movie as well. Yeah, well, great job. Thank you for being here, our guest speaker.
Yeah.
That is wrapping up our expert panel on intercultural communication. Hope you have a great holiday season.
Yes, thank you, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.